Okay, now we have some videotape from the Department of Transportation which shows how the airbag system is supposed to work. It has mannequins involved rather than human beings. Perhaps we can go to that videotape and we'll take a look at it and you can describe to us in a little more detail precisely what you mean.
Fine.
There we are seeing it without airbags, obviously a big wreck on our hands.
Yes. And you notice that they are dummies, that they do have their seat belts on, and they are in a proper location, sitting exactly the way they should be in an automobile.
Ooh.
Most occupants are not in a position such as that at the time that they are driving normally down the road.
Okay, now here with the airbags in a head-on collision, we can see that both passenger and driver are protected.
That's correct, but you'll notice that there was no braking prior to that accident. You'll notice that there is a lap belt on that particular occupant in the driver's side. You'll also notice that it's a dummy. You'll see the size of the bag it's generated. It changes the air pressure in the car, about the same as going from the top of the Sears Tower to the basement instantly, about 4 times that much pressure change. It will permanently damage people's ears. About 20% of people will have impaired hearing from the volume and pressure change of that amount of volume being generated in a car that quickly.
And there's what happens, of course, when you don't have airbags or you're not wearing seat belts. That's a real problem, isn't it, in head-on collisions? I've covered a number of fatalities in my time in journalism, and often the steering column lifts right up out of the engine block and pins the driver against the seat.
That's very correct. If you look at the driver's situation again, as was just shown on the film, the person had a lap belt on. In fact, he had a 3-point harness on. If he did not, from the bag pressure, he would have slid under the steering wheel out through the firewall. And installed in the Mercedes, which is an option, they have knee breaker bars, so that your entire force of your body will be taken right at about the kneecap level. So I guess they feel that you can wipe out your knees, which is not all that bad. Even on those systems, they require a seat belt to keep the person promptly in the seat, even with the airbag. The airbag requires something else. When you push on the airbag, the steering wheel must be solid. Back in the 60s, they found out that steering wheels were very dangerous, and in an accident can come up out of the dashboard. So they went to great extent and money to make a collapsible steering wheel. They also have it so that it cradles the body as much as it can, so that it can absorb the pressure of the body. With an airbag, you're back to a rigid steering wheel. You now have front-wheel drive cars, and when you hit that engine coming up, that steering wheel is coming up out of the dashboard, airbag or not. You have now placed another item between the person and the steering wheel called an airbag. And that, in my opinion, would contribute to the accident at point when you have the engine block being moved, and can, in fact, do more danger than good.
So what you're saying is then that the design of the system is faulty, because on the one hand you need instantaneous response from the system, but the system responds with such force in order to get there quickly to prevent a driver or passenger from hitting the dashboard or steering wheel or windshield, that if you're not wearing a seat belt, the force of the system activating can cause substantial injury.
That's correct, because the seat belt keeps you in the right position before the airbag goes off. Because if you're not in the right position, you will get hurt severely.
Mm-hmm.
If the occupant has the seat belt on, and this has already been proven in many cases, they no longer need the airbag. The law coming out that they're talking about in the Mercedes system calls it passive restraint. That means that there must be an activated system. They're looking at a situation that the passenger is in peril, both from hearing, being out of position, and not having the requirement of having the seatbelt on, so they got rid of it. And to comply, they have made the seatbelt powered. Let me explain. Here is the Mercedes system that is currently available. It is one that DOT is looking at, and you'll notice on the driver's side at the seatbelt, they have a red item. That is made by the Howitzer company in Germany.
Howitzer as in mortars?
Yes, because they're the ones most experienced in making this type of arrangement. A close-up will show you why it's a howitzer. This barrel that is pointed to your armpit if your hand is out the window has a projectile, the yellow item. It is detonated and propelled up the barrel by dynamite, which is the red charge. It is attached to a lanyard. The lanyard then activates and pulls the seatbelt up tight. So it is then an activated system, making it comply with the law. Has no benefit over the person wearing the seatbelt without the lanyard, but it complies with the law. Catch 22 and a half.
Yeah.
It also answers the question of pressure change because there's no bag. So a lot of people feel that this system that they're coming out with and recommending is an airbag system, and it's not. It is a mandatory seatbelt system.
Well, it sounds to me then that the only part, according to your view of this situation, the only benefit of the Reagan administration's ruling is if all states in the Union pass mandatory seatbelt legislation. In other words, you can get a ticket if you don't wear your seatbelt.
That's a recommendation from the Reagan administration. Again,
but it is a way of letting the auto industry off the hook, and it seems to me that perhaps part of the Reagan administration's intent is to get the auto industry's powerful lobby working very, very hard, doing something that perhaps Reagan or members of his administration couldn't do on their own, and that is to convince a majority of the state legislatures in this country to pass that mandatory law.
Well, the auto industry per se wants an airbag system. You hear the rhetoric, but here's a situation.
Now that flies in the face of the publicity that that has been given to this whole issue. What we've all heard is that the auto industry doesn't want the airbag system. It's costly, $800–900 to install the system. It drives up the cost of the automobile. They're difficult to maintain, as you indicated earlier. It's not sure how long the integrity of the system can be maintained once it's installed. It seems like there are a lot of good reasons for the auto industry not wanting airbags installed.
The auto industry is a very powerful lobby. So is the insurance industry a very powerful lobby. So are your other consumer people, good lobbyists. But the auto industry has been unable in the last 12 years to initiate any legislation to delete an airbag. They're not even asking for legislation to delete it. They are muddling through the legislations on the books that requires airbag systems. And look at it from another respect. There's a $10 billion add-on to the cost of the autos across the country on a yearly basis. Every competitor, foreign cars and the like, have to put it in, and they have a right to a profit on that manufacturing. So from an economic standpoint, it makes sense. They point out the difficulties because there is a significant product liability. But the insurance companies know very well how to write those insurance company policies and cover it as product liability in the auto industry. That also is passed on to consumer. The politicians are looking at it on a basis is going to create about 450,000 new jobs. The fact that all this equipment's being made overseas doesn't seem to bother them. So they're looking at it on a basis that it's new jobs, and it answers these powerful lobbies. So if you're looking for something in that direction to put a halt to the airbag system, you're looking in the wrong place.
Okay, we have about 20 seconds left in our program. Quickly, if airbags aren't the answer, what is?
People should wear their seat belts. I don't think the government should force them, but they should. It is a proven safety device.
And that's the answer, in a nutshell.
The answer.
Okay, it's an old chestnut, but I guess it's true, at least according to Robert Jordan, one of the designers of the airbag system back in the early 70s, and now the president of Triax Tube Company in Benton Harbor. I'm Bruce Dunbar. Thank you for watching this edition of Newswatch.